Am I willing to take a ballpoint pen, stick it in that person's throat, and stick it again and watch the blood coming out? If you have a determined attacker that's trying to take your life, you need to visit upon him the most extreme violence imaginable. In a self-defense situation, generally speaking, the objective is not to be there. You're not going to win a prize by beating somebody on the street. And the potential for disaster is enormous. In a self-defense situation, what's my objective? My objective is to survive that situation, and I'm going to use whatever technique and tactic is appropriate. And as a general rule, I do want to cheat as much as possible. This sounds very extreme because it is. I feel that most people don't really understand what self-defense entails, what it is. So many things that I've heard that are pure and utter nonsense. And this includes a lot of people that are professionals. These includes a lot of people that might be highly skilled. But I don't think that people take the totality of self-defense into effect. It's not one size fits all, and there's definitely no magic. It's actually rather complex. True self-defense can also encompass the use of weapons. It can encompass firearms. It can encompass a knife, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people, a lot of the experts, when they talk about using like Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense, for example, which is wonderful. I'm a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a third-degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I love Jiu-Jitsu. However, sometimes that is not the appropriate tool to use. There are many times where it's going to be very, very bad to go to the ground, especially if I'm dealing with a crowded environment where I don't know who's who. That said, what we want to do is we want to establish foundations. Before you start getting into, oh, is it Jiu-Jitsu? Is it Krav Maga? Is it what? It's a foundation. Foundation is going to first start with a fight stance. And why do I say that? I say that because all fights are going to start on the feet. If we're talking again about an attack from another human being, unarmed attack, if you will, if I don't understand basic defense, and that comes from my proper fight stance, then everything is going to fall apart. So let's start with that. What is a proper fight stance? I have to be able to have a structure that lends itself well to, I could be here and he throws punches, or he bull rushes in, and not much is really going to change. I don't have to make a lot of decisions. Why is that important in self-defense? Because self-defense, unlike sport fighting, has way more variables. I don't know what he's going to do. I want to make sure that I have good base and balance. The way that I do that is I'm going to step out with my left foot, and you see that I am shoulder width apart with this stance. So the reason for that is obvious. If I'm standing like this, I don't have any balance forward and back. And if I stand very bladed, I don't have good base and balance side to side. It's easy for me to teeter-totter. So I want to split that difference. Now, I need to have soft knees, and I need to have soft hips, and I'm going to hinge at my hips. And the reason for that is because I'm meeting energy coming towards me, coming very aggressively. So I want to be able to deal with that energy without, again, it compromising my posture. If I receive energy very tall, very high, it's going to break my posture. Then my feet have to try to compensate, and I'm going to generally wind up on the ground. So we want to minimize that. Again, shoulder width, hinge my hips, soft knees. Now, what do I do with my hands? Well, my hands need to be up, protecting myself. Elbows in, protecting myself. I don't want to have my hands real close to my face, and I definitely don't want this because I'm ruining my peripheral vision. So I want to open my hands, elbows in, chin down, and I'm going to kind of frame my face. The reason I hold my hands a little bit in front of my face is because since it's not a gloved type of a fight, I want to be able to do things with my open hands, whether it's parry punches, catch punches, or hand fight if I need to, if the distance dictates. And this is now going to start setting the stage for, well, how do I move? How do I create angles? How do I do these different things? If I want to learn how to fight a human being, I need to learn how to move. I need to be light on my feet. Think about this. If I'm trying to strike another human being, that human being doesn't want to get struck. So he's always going to be making adjustments, and I need to be making adjustments to that. When I'm throwing punches, look at my feet, how they just make little micro adjustments as I send movement. Yet my fight stance isn't really compromised. I make sure my hips are hinged, my elbows are in, my chin is down as I work the proper footwork, adding lightness to our feet so it's not robotic, right? That's reality. You're gonna be in a situation where you might have to address more than one thing. You want to be light on your feet. We've talked about our fight stance, we've talked about footwork, and we've talked about being light on our feet. I'm dealing with another human being, so what's my objective? I have to understand what my objective is. And listen, understand this. In a self-defense situation, generally speaking, the objective is not to be there, right? So I can use my feet to run away. If I can do that, that's the best option. You're not going to win a prize by beating somebody on the street, right? There's no prize to be won, and the potential for disaster is enormous. What is my objective? And this is a really important point that a lot of people overlook. A lot of the experts, when they talk about using like Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense, for example, which is wonderful. I'm a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a 3rd degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I love Jiu-Jitsu. Funnest thing ever. And a great skill set. However, sometimes that is not the appropriate tool to use. There are many times where it's going to be very, very bad to go to the ground, especially if I'm dealing with a crowded environment where I don't know who's who. So I lose my mobility by going to the ground. So we have to understand that. The other thing that we fail to understand is what kind of a fight am I in? You might think that a fight is we're going to throw some hands and then, we're going to shake it out, hug it out at the end of this throwing of some hands because we had some dispute. That's not a fight. And why are we doing that? If I have to engage this person in a fight, I'm on my feet. I start on my feet. Before it goes to the ground, I'm on my feet. We talked about our fight stance, and I want to make sure that I get in my fight stance. And look what I'm doing. This was too close. I can't start out here, right? If I'm here and I know that I have to go, I'm going to hit him first before he hits me. If I don't know that I'm going to hit him, I'm going to just try to de-escalate. But again, I'm in my fight stance. And I start thinking about angles and about distance. And the first way, he's not really coming at me very aggressively. I manage distance with proper footwork. I'm just moving and I'm creating angles. Look how I'm trying to go outside of his elbows. I'm trying to go outside of his elbows. The hurt can really come mainly from this side because he's got all the rotation. So I'm not going to go towards this side because I'm running right into the power. So what I want to do is I kind of want to stay over here if I can. It gives me a little bit more chance to react. So I want to be outside of the elbows, and I want to ideally get my hips where they're more perpendicular to him. If I'm here, we're neutral. When I start coming outside of this line, I'm gaining the advantage. I have all my tools that I can bring to bear, and I'm taking away his tools that he can bring to bear. We don't necessarily want to engage all the time, so sometimes I'm going to use those skill sets to extricate myself. If I'm engaged, then I need to decide, am I going to attack or am I going to just try to defend for a while? I can't be here. If I'm here and it's a fight, I need to either engage right away or get out quickly, not let him throw that first punch. If he does throw a punch from here, I have plenty of time. If he throws something, I can read what he does and then intercept and counter. If I'm here, it's just who's going to throw first. And whoever gets hit first usually is not going to fare well. So using proper footwork to create those angles, I can step, pivot, right? I can just kind of shuffle over here. Why am I doing that? I'm not in a boxing match. If I have the opportunity to box him here, why would I do that? Why not? See ya. Like, we don't need to do this. Now, sometimes what's going to happen, fight has started and the person then doesn't like this boxing energy and decides to bull rush in. So what do? I need to introduce the concept of frames and posts. In a self-defense situation, what's my objective? My objective is to survive that situation, and I'm going to use whatever technique and tactic is appropriate. And as a general rule, I do want to cheat as much as possible. So this is where frames come into play. So If Nathan bull rushes in, just high line, and I'm in my fight stance already, and all I'm going to do is meet that energy with what we call a frame, a structural frame. He rushes in, and I frame. I make sure he does not break my posture, and he doesn't compromise my balance. So even if he's pushing really hard, I'm going to kind of sprawl back, and I'm not trying to stop him. I'm just trying to maintain my structure. And it's very easy. He can bull rush in, and I can quarter sprawl here. He's not gonna break my structure this way. I'm not trying to do a pushing match as who's stronger. He can push as hard as he wants, and I can start creating angles and maintain this structure, this fight stance, if you will. Why is this so important, especially if you're talking about maybe a smaller person to a larger person? But it really applies to everyone. But the thing about this is, as a wrestler, or even if an untrained person, what do people want to do to control you? They want to grab. They want to lock hands together. I'm going to keep him from locking hands simply by giving him this. Look, I'm very cognizant of what's going on here. I'm very cognizant of this hand as well, and I can adjust if need be. But right now, what I've done is I've created a situation which makes it very difficult for him to lock his arms around me. So try to lock your arms around. I'm not going to let him. Right? And look how I level change if I need to, and I'm creating, look, this structure, elbow down, kind of across this line here, right? This is a tentative moment in time. I'm not going to hang out here, but what I did is I met this energy, this violent energy, I met it this way. And now from here, now I can start to work, I can start doing things, right? I can start working better angles, etc., to either finish this fight, put him down, or extricate myself from the situation. The more tools that I have in my toolbox, the more jiu-jitsu I know, the more wrestling that I know, I can use those things from this foundation. So if the only thing I know is how to throw a knee, I'm going to throw a knee, right? If I'm a wrestler, the only thing I know how to do is wrestle, and it's just me and him, maybe I'll wrestle from here. But I had to meet that initial energy somehow, and I have to be able to have a structure that lends itself well to, I could be here and he throws punches, right? I can block things, or he bull rushes in and not much is really going to change. My hands I don't have to make a lot of decisions. Why is that important in self-defense? Because self-defense, unlike sport fighting, has way more variables. I don't know what he's going to do. These are the things that you have to think about when you are dealing with the infinite variables in self-defense. Frames. Again, I meet this energy. I create a structural frame. Whatever it is that I decide to do, those things come later. But the foundational thing, understanding this frame. Anybody can do this, very easy to learn. The other one has great application in self-defense are my posts. So sometimes he's not going to bull rush real fast, and maybe we're here in this distance. He comes in a little hotter than expected, and I might just post. So why did I post? I post because this is like my antenna. This is my measuring rod. I don't want him any closer than this, and I actually, if I'm thinking that we're fighting, and part of fighting is that I need to damage him and not be damaged. If I do this, all I need to do, I don't even have to have my eyes open. So this is my antenna, this is my punch. And I have kept him at the perfect distance. A lot of times if I punch without some type of structure, I punch, he just comes in, close distance, and I'm gonna miss that strike. However, if I post on a person, there he is. If he wants to come into me a little bit hard, look, watch this, boom, he's gonna bring himself to that punch. I can also use that post to do things like this. I do this against the wall, his hands are up. I can use that post to take his hands out of the fight. Bam. And again, we can do whatever nasty things we want to do to keep ourselves safe. There are no rules, really. I can hold behind the head, throw an elbow, throw a punch. I can post. I can hit him in the throat. I can turn his chin. There's no fouls. Because again, if we're not talking about this, then we should just be talking about sport. Like, let's go to some jiu-jitsu competitions. Let's go to a boxing match, MMA match. Those things are pretty rough. but it's not the same type of fight. Finally, I want to talk about a couple of things that are super important, and that's going to be mindset and moral clarity. I think the moral clarity part is something that is completely overlooked oftentimes. And what does that mean? I mean, if I want to damage another human being, hurt another human being, I better have a good reason for doing that. So it's not just because maybe I lost my tempers, I'm having a bad day, someone flashed me, in traffic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For the most part, generally speaking, violence is really not going to be the answer for most situations. But when it is the only proper response, then you must be willing to do violence better than that other person. And with the moral clarity that comes from this person's trying to be, just to be maybe melodramatic, but if someone's trying to kill my wife, kill me, rape my wife, things like that, I have the moral clarity to handle that situation. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be extremely violent in resolving that situation. This is, again, another piece that people give really poor advice regarding. There was an incident in Brazil, famous grappler, famous Jiu-Jitsu guy, got in a fight in a bar. Why did he get in a fight in the bar? First of all, that's a whole other conversation, but it happened. And what he did is he used Jiu-Jitsu. He easily subdued this guy, easily. Took him to the ground, subdued him. The guy wasn't able to fight. He didn't even hurt him. He just controlled him so elegantly, if you will. Nobody hurt. He thinks the fight's over. He gets up, walks away, gets shot in the back of the head. And again, this goes back to that point. He didn't know what kind of fight he was in. He's thinking he's resolving some argument that doesn't require a shooting. The other guy may be humiliated, maybe is mentally unstable, maybe is just a criminal, I don't know. But he thought that the proper response to what just happened was to kill the man. So you got to know what kind of fight you're in. You got to have the moral clarity. And the moral clarity means that, and again, I don't want to pass judgment, but really judgment might need to be passed. Why did you even engage with this other human? Why not just walk away? If you're going to engage, then damage that person because you don't know what fight you're in. And if you're going to damage a person, you better have the moral clarity. Like you better have a reason for doing that, right? You need to have that resolved. Mindset. We have to have the mindset to do that kind of damage. So what does that mean? You have to literally rehearse this in your mind. If you've never been in a violent situation, if you've never been in a fight, you need to mentally go there before you actually go there. So in addition to, this is why training is so important, why training live, why sparring is so important, because it helps your body to adapt to that stress. You don't want to experience that level of stress the first time it's for real. You want to have trained in that stressful situation safely before you have to do that for real. If you haven't done that, let's say you're just starting out on this journey, you need to, in your mind, go to dark places. You need to see, what am I willing to do to keep someone from killing me? What am I willing to do to keep someone from killing my family? What am I willing to do to keep someone from raping me? Am I willing to take a ballpoint pen, stick it in that person's throat, and stick it again and watch the blood coming out? And literally, this type of visualization, it's not that it's not for the sake of what's the word, salaciousness or anything like that. It's just to get your head wrapped around the reality of what violence looks like. Violence, people don't die pretty. And you need to understand what that looks like. You need to decide if you're willing to do that. I see a lot of people that will tell me that, oh, I don't want to use lethal force. What does that mean? So they don't want to use lethal force, so they come up with these things that are worthless in a situation where lethal force is required. So don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that thinks that you're going to shoot someone with a little pepper ball and that's going to end the attack. Don't think you're going to get a little stun gun thing. You're going to stick somebody with that and that's going to end the attack. Spray wasp spray in their eyes. There's so many things that I've heard that are pure and utter nonsense. If you have a determined attacker that's trying to take your life, you need to visit upon him the most extreme violence imaginable, right? And you need to put that threat down. So again, this sounds very extreme because it is. If you want more of my philosophy on self-defense, if you're serious about staying safe, go to getselfdefense.com. Suck balls. If you have a determined attacker that's trying to take your life, you need to visit upon him the most extreme violence imaginable. So again, this sounds very extreme because it is. Our self-defense course is a culmination of 20 years of experience in both teaching and training. If you're interested in my philosophy regarding self-defense, just go to getselfdefense.com.